Good evening, everybody. Hello, it's Railnatter. Thanks for your patience while I've been off for a couple of weeks with brain fry-itis. We got there. Someday we'll have an army of podcasters in the Railnatter empire, and it'll be fine. Everyone can pick it up and run with it. But alas, not this year. But it's a delight to have you all along. No, that's no good. I need to press this button. I've not done this for a while, have I? Ugh. Here we are. Look, it's me, not with a green screen behind me. Yellow. We are here tonight to answer the question, what happened to the tilting technology from the advanced passenger train? Essentially, that's why we're here. So one of the things to explore there is the relationship between, the advanced passenger train and the Pendolino, gaze upon which now you can see. The relationship between these two, but also kind of, there's an interesting sort of side story here, just the way that train manufacturing and corporate history is so scrappy and messy and inefficient. And it's interesting also seeing how international it is and the way that there are multiple strains of sort of technology development here that all intertwine. And that's quite interesting. And we shall be unpicking it. Before, of course, we do that, I must say thank you to all of the Patreon supporters, but particularly the £5 above Patreon people. It is your support that makes this all happen. And so please do that. And thanks ever so much. Without further ado, everyone, welcome to tonight's Railnatter. And as the Intercity 225 fades away. How am I sounding, by the way? Am I sounding all right to you, lovely lot down the airwaves? I hope so. Do let me know in the chat. As ever, it's a live one, which is nice because all of you in the chat get to say hello. We are starting with this thing. This is why we're all here. Wait a minute, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go. Well, this is the new Acelia Horizon. And before we talk any more about that, I'm going to make sure I've got my right bits and pieces and technologies in the right place, which I do, which is good. Because it's a Railnatter and you wouldn't expect anything less. Hello, everyone. Yeah, nice to see you. Look at this, by the way. Little peek behind the curtain for all those watching. This is the old light setup. This is the new light setup. That's right. My foot. And it's a giant... it's a Hector. It's an IKEA Hector that I've sourced that we haven't been using somewhere else in the house. I'm just shoving as many lights in this corner as I possibly can. So I'm a little bit crisper. A little bit less red and pink and yellow. Anyway, I digress horribly. Sorry, James. Right. Anyway. Where to start on this tale? After years of delay, significantly related to the acceptance of its tilt mechanism, by the way, various things about dynamic simulation, etc., by the FRA, Federal Railroad Administration. This is Alstom's Acelia Liberty fleet, and it has started finally at last to enter revenue service, albeit at kind of reduced speeds for aforementioned issues. You can also see, quite nicely see. Let's just get in here. You can see the sort of funny tilty shaped bits and then non-tilty straight power. It's just strange setup in a way. It's interesting. Anyway, I digress. Point being, these are this kind of kicks off the long overdue replacement of the poor old Acela Express trains, which are also tilt capable, by the way, more on that later, that run along the Boswash Megalopolis corridor, the Northeast corridor, linking many of the US's biggest cities. Now, here in the UK, we have, back in Blighty, we have somewhat of a mixed relationship with tilting trains. Many of you lovely lot out there will know that alongside much else, including vehicle dynamics and suspension design, BR pioneered active tilting technology in the 1960s and 70s. Look, because it's British Rail. Yes, that's what we did. Yes, we managed to get a decent amount of spectacular technology developed as part of the APT project. But of course, you'll also know that that was in the 60s, by the way. So 1964 was when this kicked off, actually. So you had here's the POP train, which is where we were developing the tech. You'll also know, of course, that the APT was a failure, political more than an engineering one. We go into this in great detail in episode 6. rail natter long time ago, back when I had a beard. Remember that? Admittedly, I've kind of got a beard now because I haven't shaved properly. But that's another story. Yeah, we went through this in episode 6. Actually, wait a minute. That's funny. Watch I have the mug. I have the APT mug, which you can get because it says Rail Natter 06. There it is. There it is. Mug available in the shop. Anyway, I digress. Yes, that episode available for all of you to watch. So, it's commonly stated that these tilting trains were sort of the kind of the 221 Super Voyager, particularly the Class 390 Pendolino, were just sold us back our own tilting technology after we'd given up on the APT, but resold to us. But how true is this? That's kind of an interesting thing that I want to pick up. There's a few things I want to do this episode. That's one of the things I wanted to pick up on. This, by the way, came out of a chat in a Discord server a while back where someone asked me about the relationship between the Advanced Passenger Train and the Avelias. And I wrote a long answer, which turned into this episode and an article that's currently in Rail Magazine. So, ask me questions on the Discord service, and occasionally you will lock in, and I will hyper-focus the hell out of the answer. So, we must jump, though, back to 1969 to answer this question, because this is where our tale starts. Fiat, in fact, were developing their tilting train prototypes a little ahead of British Rail. So, yeah, that was, they're doing their various sort of bits of development, but actually the sort of actual it's the 60s, so they're kind of going on. And they'd sort of their first pre-prototype was launched in 1969 with the name Pendolino. It was the ETR Y0160. So there it is, whizzing along, looking kind of strange, but also kind of cool. There it is, tilting away. You can see the trick with these is that you can see the vehicle body is tilted further than the cant, because this track is canted. It's super elevated, as you all know. But you can see the vehicle body has rolled further. Now, this thing was running in 1969, whereas in 1972 was when we got our pre-prototype APT-E into service on the lovely Melton test track there, as it was Old Dalby. So there we go. So that's 1972. So they got ahead of us a few years early. The Italians got in ahead of us. Now, 1976 was when when Fiat got a prototype ETR 401 into service. Here it is, looking rather fetching. Look at that beauty. Very much kind of continuing the line of the ETR Y0160. We got our prototype in service in 1981. So they beat us by a good number of years at this point. They're 5 years out. They're accelerating beyond where we got. Although, admittedly, our train is a more attractive vehicle. However, it's worth saying that I should say that shenanigans are ensuing. So it's worth saying that they couldn't get their, they didn't manage to get the thing into they didn't manage to get the let me just think about how to. You don't need to see that. That's fine. Don't mind me. I'm editing on the move. You know what I'm like. So the key thing that is worth saying is that they didn't manage to get the technology actually working. They couldn't get their system to work reliably, and had a series of kind of fundamental issues with the design. So Treasury had given up on APT just as it first entered trial service. First entered trial service, which meant that BR were forced to sell the patents of the APT active tilt system to Fiat in 1982. So bring on 1982, and the race was lost. The UK gave up, sold its patents to Italy. Now, this meant that this made us a quick bob, and in 1986, as we were starting to scrap the bloody APT. 2 years later, oh crikey, that doesn't need sound. Good lord, let's remove this sound. Actually, I have the technology to do this. Wait a minute.
Ferrovie Italiane diedero il via al programma alta velocità a partire dall'estate del 1988, con i primi treni Intercity affidati agli ETR 450 Pendolino sulla tratta Milano-Roma.
Second generation sort of Actually, this is the first
Essendo in
generation
ritardo
proper
di alcuni
squadron.
anni rispetto alle realtà giapponesi e francesi, l'alta velocità in Italia inizia con la possibilità di sfruttare le ottime caratteristiche del Pendolino legate alla tecnologia dell'assetto variabile studiata per affrontare i tracciati tradizionali ad una velocità superiore del 25-30% rispetto ai mezzi normalmente in esercizio. Nuovi dispositivi elettronici permettono infatti alle casse degli ETR 450 di...
Is it? Oh, you can still hear it. Oh, the technology's not working then, is it? Oh, that's embarrassing. That's fine. I can fix this, and then I'll say the thing again. Let me do this, and this, and this, and do that. Oh, my goodness.
Ferrovie Italiane.
I know why. I know why. Wait. It's like I've never done this before, isn't it? Let's go big face. Let's get the hell rid of this. Go away, and then do this. Ah, that's nice. Ah, freedom. Freedom from the technology. You can now see it again. Oh, we got there. Technical difficulties. Yeah, we're there. It's fine. Okay. Right. Anyway, what was I waffling on about? Yeah, sorry. Oh, so 1986. APT was scrapped. Treasury had said no, APT was scrapped. In 1988, the Italians got their first generation Squadron ETR 450 into service. Here it is looking, look at it, it's beautiful. Whizzing around the corner, with some Italians looking very stylish there in the side, having a lovely time. Basically, this thing successful. So, come 1993, and the frankly much more fetching second generation Squadron Pendolino was entering service as the ETR 460 in 1993 with various improvements as well as a slight reduction in tilt angle. The ETR 450, that 1988 train, had incorporated elements of the significant elements of the APT active tilt system. The designs had been merged, so Fiat's non-functional, kind of not hugely reliable tilting system, this thing. Fiat's not hugely reliable tilting system was merged with the pretty reliable APT active tilt system, and that is what then gave the first generation launch of the first generation ETR 450, followed by the 460 in 1993 with various improvements, slight reduction in tilt angle. Now, in 1995, Fiat acquired the rear vehicle bits of Swiss company SIG, who had been developing their own tilt system, and proceeded to incorporate it into their own basically incorporate the electromechanical actuators from the SIG design into its updated tilt system. So there's some things we have to talk about, some technology stuff we have to talk about. Tilt above, which is where the vehicle, the actual tilting mechanism tilts above the kind of the bolster level, above the suspension, and then tilt below where it happens below. Basically, it's above and below the secondary suspension. So it's happening above the secondary suspension, or whether it's happening below the secondary suspension. Tilt below is favourable for all sorts of reasons, and so these are two key features. But this key thing here, an electromechanical actuator, the electromechanical tilt actuator, was a SIG bit of technology, Swiss SIG bit of technology. And therefore, these were, because this new technology was incorporated into the new design of, this is me moving back and forth with mouse. It's got there so many moving parts, and I've just not got good at it again. I'll go through the chat in a second. So, electromechanical tilt actuator. This design would form the basis of Fiat's bid for the Class 390 fleet for Virgin Trains, which they won in 1999. There is a Pendolino behind Richard Branson as Beardy Weirdy, which that's in 1999. They won that just prior to Alstom eating Fiat's train manufacturing business in the year 2000. So by this point, the tilt system was kind of significantly different to the ETR 450 origins. So you got the ETR 610, which was the kind of the newest version of the kind of the tilting fleet, which was used tilt above with swing links and electro-hydraulic actuation. You had the BR Class 390, the thing they just won the Virgin Trains bid with, which had tilt below with a circular roller beam and electromechanical actuation, so using those SIG electromechanical actuators. And then, at the same time, there's this little thing called this thing called the X2000, which we'll talk about in a second, which used a different technology. Now, this technology we'll talk about in a second, but this had been developed by the Swedish state, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it used a slightly different technology, a servo-hydraulic actuator, to achieve this, the rotations. But here they are. There's some cross-sections of different tilting technologies, all in action. And the Class 390 tech, the kind of the culmination of the Fiat APT SIG combined technology, so that's kind of British, Italian, and Swiss combination, became known as Tiltronics, alongside the kind of actuating sort of infrastructure that was required alongside. So other stuff as well, the control systems in the train and on the track, as well as the kind of the electromechanical kit, became known as Tiltronics. Here it is. Now, we must jump backwards again, because we must return to Sweden in the late 1960s again, because everyone was tilting around all over the place in the 1960s. So the X2000 I just referred to, its tilting technology, or as it was called then, the X2 actually is its proper name, was those kind of vehicles were developed in Sweden. Very similar timeline, really. It was initiated in the late 60s as a joint venture between the train and automobile manufacturer Kalmar Verkstad, the Swedish State Railways, and the industrial giant Acea, and culminated in the glorious X2000, which was ordered in 1986. Here's the damn thing, and it looks extremely fine. It's a very fetching bit of train, this. Look at it. It's glorious. Look at that. Marvellous. You know what? I'm going to leave it on screen while we do a couple of questions. Right, let's see. We've got some... Remember to tag me for questions. Network of Fan 465365 has been in an APT cab at Crewe. Very nice. I want to do that. I still haven't yet. The next question is, Pendolinos are the best way to travel from London to Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, and Scotland. They're not bad, are they? They are not bad. Hat Rust is still stuck on me calling it Boss Wash. Yeah, that's what we were taught to call it when I was at geography. Boss Wash Megalopolis. Look at that. You can still, all the pain of people very much still being able to hear it and getting deafened. Marvellous. Do I have the English version where you can see it tilting through two curves at speed? If you want that, watch the series that I terminated a long time back in Old City Skylines. I start with the APT going left and right to some beautiful music. Things episode 2 maybe about curves. Go watch that. You'll enjoy it. BR Boy Motor or Boy Motor. There we go. Right, marvelous. Yeah, don't. I was going to say, don't worry too much about the Acela logo. To be fair to Acela, they changed the logo in the 30s just after this because they obviously the fascism. So they did change that up. Yeah, don't worry. So, where are we in this? We've been swinging left, we've been swinging right. What the hell's going on? Let us focus. Let us return to talking about trains and companies more specifically. So in 1988, a couple of years after the order had been placed, Acela and Brown Boveri, what are they called? Brown, Boveri and C, the Swiss company, the Swiss are back in it again, emerged in 1988 to form ABB, which is nice. In 1989, ABB gobbled up British Rail Engineering Limited, which is also fun. So we are gobble. And then a year later, in 1990, Kalmar Verkstad also got gobbled up, or the train bit of it got gobbled up by ABB as well, just as the X2000s started entering service, which gives me the excuse to put up this stunning photo. Look at this. Look at that. Isn't it absolutely stunning? Marvellous bit of train design. I always wondered why they're very short, these things. That's my only complaint about them. But the piped design is just very, very nice. Love these. They're just a very, very nice bit of train design. Absolutely gorgeous. So, 1992. What was happening in 1992? Well, actually, what's fun is that one of these trains actually made its way over onto the Northeast Corridor in winter of 1992-1993. But we'll get to that later. Here it is with Amtrak written on it. Very, very strange. Such a strange vibe. Yeah, there we go. This is a less beautiful train, admittedly, but you can see it's got the ABB logo on the side. Let's see here. Let's see the ABB logo here. There it is. Marvelous. So, 1996, though, because ABB's train manufacturing arm merged with Daimler-Benz train building unit to form Adtrans in 1996. People in the UK might remember Adtrans for a bit, just as they might remember ABB for a bit. So Daimler-Benz and ABB merged to form Adtrans, and then Bombardier ate that in 2001. So, the Adtrans survived for a bit, but Bombardier gobbled it up in 2001. Now, bear with me, but we have one last little jump back in history to do. We're not done yet, I'm afraid, because we must go to beautiful Canada. Gorgeous, wonderful. The land of the maple leaf. Actually, specifically, Canadian mining giant Alcan in the, once again, mid-1960s, because they had started development of a lightweight aluminium train that would incorporate active tilt. So they were looking at their own novel active tilt system. They, alongside steelmaking company Dofasco, led on the design of the tilting bogies, incorporating control systems developed by Spar Aerospace, who would later design the Canadarm for use in space. There were conversations with BR engineers, as you might imagine, with Canada, those who were working on the APT at the time. But the tilting system was its own design. It was its own novel design, separate to the advanced passenger train work. This train would become the wonderful LRC. And in 1974, the pre-prototype started testing. There it is. Again, it's a very pointy looking thing. This thing's a great looking thing. Again, also with some very nice looking literature associated with it. Look at it. It's that kind of North American gadget ban stuff that we went through way back with Alexandra, with Big Mood Energy. We went through some of this stuff. The vibes are kind of like interesting at the time, right? It's the 70s. There's a time when the North America could have gone a better way. Despite things. So, a year later, a very much smaller Bombardier than we are familiar with today proceeded to gobble up Montreal Locomotive Works Limited, who had been they were delivering the traction system of this train because, of course, it was a diesel rather than electric. And wait a minute, let me just give me a second. Let me just. It's a complicated tale, and I need to be precise with it. Otherwise, we'll be here for 150 years. There's some story to tell. So you got this. So Bombardier gobbled up Montreal Locomotive Works. But in 1980, this thing was being run on the Northeast Corridor as part of their early high-speed investigation. So well in advance of anything else running on the Northeast Corridor. This was running up and down. And look at it. It's very nice. So this ran from 1980 to 1982. And you can see the one at the bottom is the one that was running on Amtrak. The one at the top there is the kind of the LRC from the poster. From the poster. Look at it. Oh, look at this thing. Absolutely gorgeous. That lovely orange as well. Guess not a fan. Oh, I quite like the pointiness. There's something distinctly sort of I don't know, 70s North American railways about it in a good way. I like it. And it's got these kind of... Actually, look at the coaches, because people should find, particularly those who've travelled more recently on the Acela Express, should find those coaches a little familiar. As, strange enough, should a lot of people who travel on cross-country trains. More on that later. So... I'm waffling horrendously. In service, this little fleet. They entered Canadian service in 1981, by the way. So it's worth saying. They start running in Canada. Via Rail starts running them in 1981. Now, this wee fleet had some initial reliability trouble, but it was pretty fuel efficient for a diesel set, as well as being way faster than anything else being run by Via Rail, who had, by the way, just been formed. But no further sales were forthcoming, despite good service. The locomotives were retired through the 1990s, RIP. In fact, I think the first scrapping was in 1990, which is sad. Look at them all. Bye-bye to these power cars. But you'll notice the coaches aren't in this scrapping pile, because there are quite a few of them still running today. In fact, any nerds here aware of the fact that I think some of them, anyone have travelled in any recently? I think they are currently still running about in Canadian service as we speak, which is kind of interesting. Anyway, so Canadian tilting trains. As this was happening, Amtrak had finally launched its bid for its tender, for tilting trains to run on the Northeast Corridor. So, having already run its trials, ABB bid an X2000 derivative. Oh, by the way, look at these two weirdos. Look at these two trains here. You'll notice there's a Siemens situation going on here. Yeah, so it launched its tender for tilting trains. ABB bid an X2000 derivative. Bombardier paired up with GC Alstom. Here we are. So they paired up to compete with them using a derivative of the LRC. What did LRC stand for again? It's like light rail car or something like that. It wasn't a very hugely exciting name, or maybe it was light. I can't remember. Right, nerds in the chat, tell me what LRC stands for. Tom S still has an N-gauge model of the LRC power car. That's very nice. Am I referring to the funky Frankenstein trains that Not Just Bytes mentioned in a recent video? There's also the Renaissance sets, which are ex-British Rail era, sort of, or kind of late British Rail, early privatisation sort of sleeping coaches. That's a whole other story. The famous video of the Canadian tilting trains about to crash into a freight train. The driver jumps out, getting hurt in the process. Hello, Max Transit, by the way. Light, rapid, comfortable. Thanks, Marcus Allen, joining us in the chat. Light, rapid, comfortable. That is, of course, you name your train 3 separate, unconnected words. They're still running on the. They're the mainstay of the Quebec-Windsor corridor, which is funny because that's what they were running. So they just swapped out the power car. So there you go. You can still travel in the same style, just with a presumably less nice. Do they tilt still? Is they still tilting on the way back and forth? It works in French as well. Léger, rapide et confortable. There we go. Sorry, my French. Oh, it's Quebecois. So it'd be like. No, I'm not going to be racist about the Quebecois. It's fine. Right, marvelous. Okay, here we go. So. It's fun. We're there. Night Star is a perfect topic for an episode. Yeah, it really is, for all sorts of different reasons. So, sorry, I've got horribly distracted. So, ABB put forward their X2000. Siemens put forward a train that they'd been running, by the way. They've been running a version of their ICE3, which is kind of interesting. That was it's kind of a chunked up version of that was their bid. And Bombardier, GC, Alstom put forward an LRC derivative as well. So you have these kind of three major players competing. What's quite interesting is that Fiat hoped to get involved in this and didn't bother. They didn't end up. I don't know whether that was because of the shenanigans and ABB like purchasing, and they didn't want to compete with ABB. I don't know, but Fiat had looked to get involved and then decided they weren't going to, as you can see from this extract from what I guess was at the end. Yeah, from the MIT. So obviously the MIT, by the way. But anyway, so yeah, there we go. Interestingly, though, that the here it is. Yeah, 1996. The Bombardier, GC, Alstom were announced as the winners. Here they are with some heavy. Look at this CGI. Look at the CGI rendering going on here. Look at this. Isn't that spectacular? These though, by the way, firstly, you can absolutely see that the cars, the coaches, are LRC derived, which is quite nice. The front end looks more like the X2000, which is also in and of itself quite interesting. But crucially, that front vehicle is electric. It's not diesel. They went electric because, of course, running the Northeast Corridor, which was, thank God, electrified. So electric power car, marvelous, rather than diesel loco. Now, we do have to do I should say these entered. So there's the CGI renders, and they entered revenue service in the year 2000. They're there with the slightly less nice Amtrak logo. But anyway, there we go. Look, nothing beats that. Nothing beats the original Amtrak. Helvetica. Oh, it's very nice. So there we go. Amtrak running the Acela Express from 2000 onwards. So we have to do one last time hop. Sorry, everyone. One last time hop. Because 10 years earlier, in 1986, Bombardier had just swallowed up Belgian train builder BN Construction Ferroviaire et Métallique. Don't shout at me for my French. And that's my Wallonian, actually, specifically. In 1986, it nabbed the assets. By the way, I should say, BN, known for building all sorts of different trains, but lots of trams in their artillery as well. They built all sorts of things at BN. In 1987, because of various forms of US industrial policy, which had essentially killed them off, both Bud Don't Break, and the Pullman railcar company were absorbed by Bombardier. Bombardier got basically all the patents of them. It kind of swallowed up all the kind of the assets, patents, and much more were swallowed up. It didn't stop there, because in 1989 it swallowed up ANF, Industry, I don't know. But this was famous for building lots of. They're also famous for building lots of coaches and stuff. Like their logo was a little bit newer than that when they got gobbled up. But anyway, you get the point. So you'd see Bombardier starting to get stuck in Europe and in the US, having nabbed some assets from the US and going to Europe. Now, in 1998, this clump of corporate flesh bid for the first of Virgin Trains West Coast mainline orders for both non-tilting and tilting trains. Here are the various things. The one in the middle there, the one that I've put in scribbly brackets, is not... it is not... It looks suspicious. It's not the Bombardier vehicle. It's the Alstom vehicle. It's the early iteration of the Pendolino design. What I find quite interesting is that clearly the same industrial designer has been involved, because the top image, which is this image, which is absolutely, definitely Bombardier, this image, which is essentially what kind of became Alstom, are extremely similar looking vehicles. They're very, very similar. And then you can see a slightly more... This is interesting as well, because this sketch, whatever it is of what would become the Voyagers, by the way. But it looks very Pendolino, doesn't it? So it's kind of a hybrid between Pendolino and... It's an interesting looking... There's something very interesting about this sort of design history. And this is because the industrial designers were the same, presumably. I can't remember which it was, but it's one of the famous industrial designers. They did the Electro... I believe it's the same that did the Electros, the Class 90, the Class 91 design. So, 1998, this clump of corporate flesh... bids for that Virgin Trains order, and I should say the thing that what we see on screen right now is it's a steel-bodied derivative of the LRC, which was aluminium, hence Alcan. This was steel-bodied, including its LRC, the tilting system that it had also developed for the Acela Express, and that was what was deployed on the 221 Super Voyagers. They also had the non-tilting Voyagers, but the 221 Super Voyagers were tilting and deployed the tilting system from LRC. Which means, by the way, that the train we're about to throw on screen are a closer relative of the Acela Express fleet than you might think. So, yeah, not only was the Super Voyager, which, by the way, entered service in April 2002... Here it is, the Super Voyager, 2002. Not only were these Super Voyagers Canadian, essentially, derived from the Canadian tilting technology, but also close relatives of the Acela Express that had been running 2 years earlier, which is kind of interesting. So that's April 2002, which of course means Canadian dominance. That's right, it's Canadian dominance. I'm baffled as to why my deck has absolutely no control of sand. I suppose I'll work that out in the future. Anyway. Of course, only what was it, like a month, 3 months later, the 390 entered service. And I can indeed confirm that, given that the 390 ran Tiltronics, this did indeed have tilting equipment with a direct lineage to the BR-designed APT system. But our story does not stop there. Before we continue, though, I must say, we'll come back to thoughts and questions in a minute. Just to remind everyone, this is a kind of a techie episode, and it might end up being a bit of a shorter one. The bonus is on tonight at 21:30, and we're going to be talking about roundabouts on the A19. So if that sort of thing sounds like your kind of sauce, then do join. For £5 and above, you get all the stuff you get if you spend less, which is you get Discord access, you get end credits appearance, you get merch discount, and a warm fuzzy feeling. But at £5 plus, you get all of that You get Q&A sessions separately where you can chat with me. You get open chatting patrons to say hello. You get the weekly bonus Rail Letter Short, which is at 9:30 tonight. You get the free How the Rails Will Fix the Future audiobook. You get behind-the-scenes previews. You get first dibs on event tickets, of which one will be coming up soon. All this sort of good stuff, all things of this nature. Have you worked out where we're going yet, by the way? Has anyone else worked in the chat? Record scratch start. Let me start. Yeah, that's it. Alex, you're right. There we go. So, the Acela Express, if you want to get up before 6 a.m., you can get to NYC 50 minutes quicker for the same price with better service. Yeah, sure. Right, so we have got in play right now. Let me remind myself what. Look, I'm using notes. I never use notes when I do an episode. This is why I can never do it. The thing is, I want it to be tight. The irony being that if I thought this would go up for an hour and a half, and actually I've rocketed through it. So, we're doing all right. Anyway, I digress. Where are we at? So we are in the mid-2000s, and Alstom now own the APT Fiat derived Tiltronics system. So that's Alstom. They own Tiltronics. Bombardier owns the LRC system, which is also on the Supervoyagers. And Alstom also own the tilting system of the X2000. There it is. So it's an Alstom Bombardier mashup when it comes to the West. Now, mostly. We'll get to some... It's not the total and complete story quite yet. We'll get to that momentarily. So we've got... It's in 2016... we have Alstom winning the bid to deliver the Acela replacements. These are their Avelia Liberty trains, which are based on their kind of latest iteration of their TGV train technology, basically, along with various other things chucked in. What's interesting is that these trains deploy Tiltronics, so the same tilting technologies as on the Pendolino, in the Class 390 Pendolino in the UK. And that kit is the bits of it still built in the former Fiat plant in Italy. So that's their active tilt system, still built in Italy, still basically the APT kit. Now, in 2020, Alstom gobbled up Bombardier. Well, technically it was a merger, but so this means that given the fact that basically, I was going to say, this kind of gives us the modern Alstom high-speed rail fleet, which is basically the fast train. These are the fast train because, this is their absolutely Alstom and therefore the European train company's big, flagship high-speed train product. The LRC-derived system, Bombardier system, is going to cease to be developed. I don't think that's dead because Alstom bought Bombardier. The X2000 derived system was never really developed beyond its first deployment anyway, so that's kind of pricier, and it was pricier than its competitors, which kind of means that tilt kit is also no longer being developed, which means that the tilting technology that wins, the dominator, is the tech that is the APT derived tech. The tilt technology that relied on British Rail's brilliance to actually get working is now the Western world's dominant tilting technology. So that means APT dominance, everyone. Hell yeah. So Christoph et al. is asking, hello, John Christoph. Are you going to get to the bit where Alstom relocated the entire supply chain for the Avelias to the US to comply with Buy America laws, then over half of those firms went bankrupt? That's in and of itself its own bloody disaster episode, but it is also very much an enormous... The Buy America laws are just nuts. Like, you guys should just be able to buy the same train because the loading gauge is fine. You can easily fit what we run. Just buy the same train. It's a whole other story, and it's just going to involve me shouting and ranting, so it's fine. APT wins. It's the moral of this story is that APT done good. I must add a little addendum to this because we've got to complete the international picture. For those of you who will rightly call me out otherwise, Germany's ICT, which is up here it is. It tilts. It's an ICT uses kind of a Fiat APT derived tilt system. So they've kind of bought that tilt system. It's not Tiltronics, but it's kind of it's earlier in the chain, as it were, Fiat APT drive tilt system. Their Regio Swinger, which is a weird combination of German English, weird combo. Basically, the kind of the DB 611 derivative up here, the other picture, uses a Fiat SIG combined design. Again, a weird, like, earlier branch of the tree than Tiltronics, because it's Fiat SIG combined sort of design, the Swiss getting more involved than they did in later Tiltronics. And at the bottom, you can see the lovely RAB DE 500, which uses... sorry, I'm speaking rubbish. The Regio Swinger uses its own tilt system with kind of fairly mixed reliability that's been gobbled up via Antrans into Bombardier, then Alstom, so it's kind of lost to history. So RIP to both those tilting systems at the top. The Swiss RABDE 500 uses the Fiat SIG combined system, but again, an earlier iteration down the chain. We look eastwards, and it's difficult to put all of them into pictures because Japan has an absolutely enormous range of its own homegrown tilting technologies, which I would be remiss to not at least nod to. There are loads of them. China has a mixture of tilting systems that it has selectively developed or appropriated via various means. Now, I think the last one that is worth mentioning for various pertinent rail natter reasons is South Korea, because South Korea developed its own design at the turn of the millennium. There it is at the top, looking fat with a PH. That is a tilting train. But then they went, this is stupid. This is extremely expensive. They're heavy. They're unreliable because it's a lot of extra kit. Actually, what we're going to do is straighten out our curves, which, as a P-way engineer, I'll remind everyone that is precisely the correct long-term solution anyway. Don't... The tilting trains are a bit like bimodes. They're a bodge for building a better railway alignment. Like, tilting trains are an ugly... You get a smaller vehicle space for passengers. They're complicated, and we should be aiming to simplify things. They're a compromise, and the best thing to do is to build railways that don't need tilting trains. The top one is extremely Moomin coded, Alex. You're absolutely right. So there we go. So in true APT. No, well, yeah, actually, but no, in true rail natter style, I just wanted to be like, maybe the right thing to do is not the bodge in the long term and plan around the bodge, but also be aware that the bodge will always be there to haunt you. What about tilting the curve itself, like between Breda and Antwerp? Well, everyone knows about that because everyone here knows, of course, about Kant and how we deliberately tip trains over that. I don't know how many episodes ago that was. How many episodes ago was the tilting trains over episode? It wasn't that long ago. We went into the equation of Kant. It was deep lore. It was the good stuff. Nerdian 1, you can go back and have a look at that episode and learn all about Kant. And how everybody watching this loves a good Kant. Christoph et al. We're advocating for procurement reform at RPA as part of our push for a national rolling stock pool. But to be honest, procurement isn't even the biggest obstacle to starting new services anymore. Yeah, well, where to even start? Why does Japan have so many different tilting technologies? They have very curvy infrastructure, very limited space to build, not just for land price values and buildings, but for mountain reasons. It's very, very difficult to squeeze everything in. But there are dozens of different systems, lots of legacy narrow gauge railway systems that require tilt, lots of that means that there's just lots of kind of homegrown, organically novel tilting systems have kind of popped up, which is quite interesting. A Regio Swinger ought to have been built by Stadler with that name. Peter Boringer, correct, yes. If you've got comments and thoughts, do chuck them my way, by the way. And I will see Acela Express, Rabbit Ears Express, please. All right, the Hapras, that's a fair raise. Also, it's funny because there's also some... The corporate story in there is kind of funky. I would have loved to like drawn it in a single diagram, but frankly, I just didn't have the time or the brain power. It's like this mess of lines dotting this way and that way, but tending to enormous Alstom-shaped monopoly, by the way. Networker fan 465365 has asked me for opinions on Life of a Showgirl. None. Zero opinions on it. I don't listen to Taylor Swift, but not because I don't like Taylor Swift necessarily. It's not my kind of bag musically, but it doesn't mean that I'm not involved. I enjoy watching the discourse, though, of which there seems to be some. Mostly Taylor Swift is a money hoarding psychopath, though, so that's the main thing about that. Alex is very happy that the stupid Siemens-Alstom merger got blocked and can't. Yeah, it's not good to have... If you have the railway train... If you have the train company it's not actually a good thing if there is only one of them and it's privately held. Like if there was the EU train building company and that with things that lent into it, so you had like an Apollo program for the train, but lots of contractors sent bits to it. Maybe that might make some sense. But private single monopoly, it's already bad that we've got so few. So I want Stadler to do well. CAF are a thing. There are other manufacturers out there in Europe, and it's good to open our eyes. I mean, look at level boarding. Level boarding only in the UK now is a solution because Stadler said, what? No, just do that. Just build that. That's fine. The Haprust is saying regular service on the North East Corridor is pretty good. Michael C is saying it's already bad enough that Alstom has a monopoly on tilting trains. Yeah, well, quite. Interesting to see what that ends up looking like. I mean, again, the thing to end on this is probably actually the other note, of course. Let's go big face for this one. The other note to talk about, and I think I've written about this before, tilting trains are doomed in the UK. The Pendolino will be the last tilting train that is purchased for use in the UK. Originally, that was going to be because we were going to run higher efficiencies and smooth out some of the curves through better standards, as much as we might have done a bit of physical work to the track. But also, no one's building a tilting train for our loading gauge ever again. It's just not happening. It's hard enough fitting the bimode stuff underneath that all of our trains seem to have by default now. So, Christopher Al is absolutely right that 20 trains a day isn't enough for an aggregated multi-metro area of 100 million people. I would agree with that. If the UK, it's one of the things the UK does well, because of course we sacrifice the suburban service, which is on the same tracks, but we run, we have a lot more than 20 trains a day running frequent services up and down our main lines. Although admittedly we've thinned the service on the West Coast main line for stupidity reasons. On the East Coast main line, we're like long distance high speed service maxing to the point where we've kind of obliterated much of the local service. Anyhow. What was I waffling on about? I came here to talk about the fact that tilting trains are dead, didn't I? Yeah, that's right. That's what's going on. Everyone here, while I'm big face. Oh, Hitachi as well. Yeah, Hitachi exists as well. True. Doing a lot of close work with Alstom, which is interesting, particularly for the HS2 bid, which was interesting. Although where that HS2 bid is legally, who knows at the moment. Michael C. To fair, the Pendolinos only made sense under the assumption they'd run at 140 miles an hour. As soon as they were limited to 125, they lost that advantage. It's only marginally faster than 110. Yeah, agreed. I still think that there are benefits to running 200 kilometers an hour, and we should do work to. There is quite a lot of work we can do to get rid of some of those tight curves by managing with higher efficiencies and things. There are things we can do, there's not much point in them. And again, 110 would be nice because it would be easier to run everything on the West Coast main line. You have a higher capacity railway, just as is the case on the East Coast. But what we should be doing is, of course, building a dedicated high-speed line to bypass all that up the West Coast main line into Edinburgh and Glasgow. You don't need to really do the heavy engineering to get rid of the curves, because you just build by the time you've done that, you might as well build a new high-speed line, which is the better thing to do. Standing still on a tilted track is so wild. Speaking of slow down, that's a fun thing. Why are Pendolinos reducing speed again? They just didn't get the signalling. To go 140 miles an hour, you need the in-cab signalling, and it wasn't rolled out. ETCS, or an earlier equivalent, was supposed to be rolled out on the West Coast main line as part of the West Coast route modernisation, which cost 30 billion quid in today's money and didn't achieve that or a number of other things. And that's why we got HS2, and then HS2 got cancelled again because everyone forgot that's why we got HS2. Katie Fenn says, I had no idea the N700 Shinkansen tilted until I looked up on Wikipedia when I got back from Japan. Very smooth, fantastic trains, yeah. With HS2, even just phase one, the justification for Pendolinos evaporates entirely. Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't make any sense. They're doomed. They'll be the last tilting trains in the UK, and it's not a bad thing, is the answer to that. Not a bad thing. Particularly on the West Coast main line, actually, the fact that the tilt allows the train to run faster does reduce capacity. So again, run them slower. People are unhappy that the tilt isn't used in the voyages anymore. Well, it's complicated. Maintaining it is a faff. It's for similar reasons why the Acela Expresses were very desperately need to be retired. They're way past their use by date. They've been battered to hell. Vince Chadwick is absolutely. Pendo's limited line side signaling. Pendo's limited by line side signaling to 125 miles an hour. Exactly. NR Railtrack didn't achieve the 140 the in-cab signaling, and we're only barely delivering it on other bits of the mainline network. Although we're getting there on the East Coast mainline, but slowly catchy monkey. Everyone, the only thing for me to sort of say is is to get rid of my face and say, you can listen to me on Well, There's Your Problem podcast, which is out. If you want nearly 3 hours worth of me and Victoria, by the way. No Liam, sadly, but he'll be back. And Roz and Nova, of course, talking about the Quinton Hill rail disaster. Then, do I have the podcast for you? Come and join. It will be a delight. I should say, actually, that next week's episode of Rail Now is going to be a fun one, because I believe, unless something else interrupts, I have a load of guest episodes I need to be doing, but unless something interrupts me, I fully expect to be doing an episode on why the Permanent Way Institution needs to change its name. And if it isn't next week, it'll be the week after, but that is the plan. I have so many guest episodes to do with people. I'm sorry to all those who are hoping to do guest episode with, it's keep my head above water at the moment. It's with business. It's kind of dropped there, but it's leveling out a bit now in the run up to Christmas. But yeah, there are a few things. Look out for other events that I'll be at. So I'm at a book launch in November, which will be a lot of fun. So keep an eye out for that. What else? Politics in Rail, Young Rail Professions. I'll be at the London Politics in Rail hosting that. There's a few little things dancing around. So there's a few little events and bits and bobs to keep an eye out on. But anyway. Burnsy Rail is saying, from an engineering and design standpoint, how much did the Pendolino design reduce what could have been a horrific outcome in the Grey Rig accident? Go back to our Carmen episodes where we talk about that, because the answer is a lot. November talking about tilting trains making a rail just before I pause, and then here's me talking about exactly that. Well, exactly. IC225 was regurgitated APT, especially the way the Class 91 was built. Yes, it was. It was derivative of APT-U, was kind of one of the designations of the Intercity 225. It had no business being called the Intercity 225. It's just that the APT, just like XPT was carrying on the APT branding because it was still successful then, IC225 should have been an APT branded train, and it needs some of its mock-ups. It does pick up those, but the HST was seen as more politically successful, so they moved to the Intercity style of branding, and went from 125 to 225. All of that, it brings us to a nominally at-length episode. Everyone, I'll see you for the bonus episode, which I've not put a thing on screen for, but we're talking about roundabouts and money and how daft that is. Also Swallow livery. Yeah, well, the Swallow livery is close to the APT livery, of course, isn't it? Not the Intercity livery. So, yeah. Anyway, right. We'll see you. I'll see all of you for the bonus who are joining. Take good care of yourselves. I'll see you next week. Cheerio! Cheerio!